Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's story is a mix of grief and frustration. Our OP, still processing the loss of his mom earlier this year, was doing his best to keep one of her holiday traditions alive, making peanut brittle. But before he could even finish his first successful batch, a neighbor came knocking, asking when she was getting her share, and even suggesting he have it ready by tomorrow. What happened next shows how grief and entitlement can clash in the worst way. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Trying to carry on mom's holiday traditions while grieving. I'm a 20-year-old guy and still live with my dad at his house. My mom was in a lengthy battle with breast cancer and she passed during July. It wrecked me on so many levels that I was not prepared for. On top of losing my hero, I felt like I should stay with my dad to be here with him and support him. One of those things is keeping up with traditions and recipes passed down from my mom, and it's been really hard for the holidays to even capture a fraction of the spirit of when my mom would do holidays, as she was the backbone of setting stuff up, preparing food, and decorating. But this is where we run into a problem. My mom, when she was alive, she would make peanut brittle, some fudge, and double chocolate crinkled cookies. But she'd make like up to 30 batches of them to put in containers and hand them out to family, to friends, to me and my siblings, co-workers, and of course the neighbors. This is my very first real year of making all these sweets by myself, and I'm really not committed to doing all of this baking. When I'm in college, as well as balancing a job and a side hustle, I have to make more money. I'm just too damn sad with the grieving and too tired from school and work to do loads of batches. In fact, that's the only reason I'm making these sweets. It's because they're yummy. I can't lie, I know my dad would appreciate them. I just started to attempt to make them. I only have made 2 small test batches, and they were good. Not as good as my mom's, but this is where my neighbor knocks on my door. I answer expecting like a Christmas card, and she said, "Hi, I was wondering if you got any of the peanut brittle done." So I explained yeah, I'm trying to perfect the recipe, but I don't know if I can send them out this year. And she asked, "Oh, mom's name is really slacking behind this year." And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, does she not know my mom passed away? And then I'm thinking, we told her the news of it spreading and her being too tired to do any neighborhood walking around the block with her friends. So I'm dumbfounded that she can't put 2 and 2 together, that she isn't able to make peanut brittle. So I tell her she passed away in July, and she just looks at me with a surprised expression. She said with almost a confused tone, "So you're not making peanut brittle at all? How about tomorrow?" I, at that point, close the door and kind of just hand in a fist, because I'm about to break down in an ugly cry and other bad emotions. My dad finally comes out of his room and asks who it was it a package, and I tell him neighbor wanting peanut brittle. And he looked confused, and he told me, "You haven't even figured out the right temperature yet," in a joking way. But right as he says that, my neighbor texts him saying that I was being snark to her, so I tell him the full story. He gets teary-eyed because we're still grieving my mom. And he was more lighter than usual peanut brittle for us. I feel like I could have been worse by either yelling or just flat out crying, but me closing the door in a fast manner was all I can really think to do. I didn't mean to upset her. I'm thinking all this stuff maybe she didn't know and is processing it, but she knew my mom was barely able to walk 100 to 200 feet and always tired. Your neighbor's incredibly rude and insensitive. Even if your mother was alive and healthy, to just show up at a neighbor's house demanding a homemade gift is insane. Add on the fact that she knew your mom was battling cancer, even if she didn't know she passed, but she knew she was ill and comes over and makes comments not only demanding this gift, but also saying she's really slacking this year while fighting cancer. I can't get over this lady's level of entitlement. And our second story. When retail experience angers a Karen. So my brother-in-law was decorating his apartment in preparation for holiday and he asked me if I could go along and help him as he's not brilliant at interior design. I happily agreed, as a day shopping with him is always fun. We enter our local home furnishing store and prepare to shop. Being a former retail manager, I'm pretty good at figuring out store layout quickly, so I know exactly where to go for each item Big Bro has listed. We're casually making our way through the list as I point out where we need to go when a lady grabs my arm, during a pandemic I might add, and I instantly tense up. Here's how it goes down. The cast: me, BB, Big Bro; EK, Entitled Karen; SE, store employee. EK: excuse me, there are other people in this store that need help, you know. Me: kindly let go of my arm, please. EK: no, you've been helping this guy for ages. It's my turn. Me: he's my brother. Now get the hell off me. I shake her off my arm and she gets huffy. EK: you can't give preferential treatment to family members. You have to help all customers. Me: no, I don't. I don't work here, lady. EK: yes, you do. How else would you know where everything is? Me: because I used to work in retail. EK: so you do work here. BB: no, she doesn't. She said she used to. EK interrupting: you stay out of it. You've hogged her enough. BB raises his eyebrows at me as if to say, sorry, I tried. But he bails at this point. Can't say I blame him, but gee, thanks, bro. SE comes over and asks, is there a problem? EK screeches, yes, this employee won't help me, but she's been helping this other customer for ages. Pointing at my brother's rapidly disappearing back. SE, ma'am, she doesn't work here. She's not even wearing clothing that looks remotely like our uniform. She's a customer too. EK, then why does she know where everything is? SE looks taken aback, so I decide to rescue her and say, because I'm not a moron and can shop by relevant department contents. EK goes several shades of purple and starts screeching for a manager. The SE just tells me to carry on with my shopping and that they'll handle it from here. Later, as we're queuing at the till, BB and I see EK at the customer service desk gesturing wildly in my direction and still clearly in full rant mode. We pay up, and I can't resist but to give her a cheeky wave goodbye as we head out the store. It's hysterical she pulled a manager card. The actual employee was very respectful. What did she think the manager would do? Make you help her? And our next story. He wanted all the credit, now he's doing all the work, too. I work in tech support, but basically a call center fixing computer problems. So when someone calls, we record their information. Everything from their name to the reason for the call to the solution. During a team meeting, one of my higher-ups, we'll call her Paula, announces if a client calls back about the same problem in a short time, whoever ultimately fixes it gets full credit for the work. For context, I'm not here to be super IT. I don't care about the credit. I work my 8 hours a day and collect my check. That's it. One day I get a call. The client says they were just on the phone with someone else and they told them to call right back. I look up the coworker's name, John. He just went to lunch. I ask the client if they want me to transfer them to John's voicemail. They say, can you just help me? No problem. I'm familiar with their problem and fix it in 20 minutes. I adjust the record for the problem to my name. I add John's name as a footnote so he still gets partial credit. Fast forward, John gets back from lunch, comes up to me and demands to know why I took his name off the record. Tells me he spent an hour on the phone with that client and he'd appreciate it if I would let him know if I touch his records. Mind you, John and I don't speak, he's cold towards me, and we only interact when absolutely necessary. Today he doesn't even say hello, he just starts in on me. I wait a moment and calmly explain how I got the call, the client didn't want to wait, and how I followed procedure. I also pointed out that I added John's name as a footnote for partial credit, which is not required to do. John says, oh, I didn't see that, and leaves. No apology, just a mumbled thanks as he walks away. In our next team meeting, our boss tells us from now on whoever speaks to the client first gets full credit. I asked her to please clarify because Paula told us otherwise. She reiterates the announcement, says this is how we're doing it. I hope that makes sense, and quickly moves on. I can see where this came from, but I hold my peace. More background. John's approach is to rush through calls to increase his calls taken metrics. My approach is to make sure the client is taken care of before the call ends. So a few weeks go by and things took an unexpected turn for John. When a client calls back for a problem that was previously marked fixed, I restart the record and only add my footnote. This causes the record to go back into the original agent's workflow for processing. Since John doesn't take the time to read the footnotes, he's reaching out to me for updates before he marks the record fixed again. I take my time to respond because I've already made the info available in my footnote. Not only that, some problems require him to call the client back to confirm the problem is actually fixed. He went from talking to me once a quarter to once a week, so now he's doing twice, sometimes 3 times the work, all because he wanted full credit for partial results. Personally, I'd be trying to find a way to check back with Paula just for a clarification of company policy. The tricky part's to make sure the one who's lying about policy so they don't have to deal with complaints or so they don't have to do as much work has no idea you're doing this. Not until they get blindsided by the higher-up dropping a ton of bricks. And our last story. The dumbest Karen ever. Hey Reddit, let me tell you about my neighbor Karen, the human equivalent of a car crash. It started small. Karen had been complaining about me since the day I moved in. At first it was petty stuff. Your trash bins are too close to the property line. Your lawnmower's too loud. Why do you park on the street when you have a driveway? I tried to be polite, even offered to move the bins and adjusted my mowing schedule, but nothing was ever enough for her. The tension hit a boiling point last month when she came storming over, claiming my car made the street look cluttered and that she wanted me to park somewhere else so her adult son, who still lives at home, could park in front of her house. I told her politely that the street is public and I pay taxes like everyone else. She lost it. You just wait, she hissed. You think you can disrespect me? You'll regret it. I thought it was just another one of her dramatic outbursts until this past Tuesday morning. I got up early for work, grabbed my coffee, and stepped outside, only to find my car missing. I panicked, thinking it had been stolen. I called the police, filed a report, and spent the rest of the morning stressing out. 2 hours later, an officer called me back. Good news and bad news, he said. We found your car a block over. You should probably come see this. I borrowed my girlfriend's car and drove over. When I saw my sedan, I nearly cried. The front end was crumpled, airbags deployed, and the whole thing was sitting in a lake of water next to a broken fire hydrant, totaled. While the police were taking notes, my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Gable, shuffled over. She glanced around nervously, then whispered, I saw Karen get out of your car last night. Of course, Karen. I told the officers, and we walked over to her house together. She opened the door with that smug little smile of hers, holding her coffee mug like nothing in the world could touch her. Officers, what brings you here? Ma'am, one officer said, your neighbor's car was stolen and crashed last night. A witness placed you at the scene. Do you know anything about that? Karen gasped dramatically. Me? Oh no, I was in bed all night. I heard the crash, but I didn't see anything. Maybe some kid stole it. She was way too smug for someone supposedly innocent. That's when the younger officer pointed at the shiny new doorbell camera on her house. Mind if we take a look? It might have captured the thief. Karen froze. That camera doesn't even work. Wi-Fi issues, she said quickly. The officer didn't buy it. We can get a warrant if needed. After a long pause, Karen reluctantly let them in. 5 minutes later, we were all standing in her living room watching her own camera footage showing Karen at 1:12 a.m. walking straight to my car, opening the unlocked door and driving off. 5 minutes later, the audio captured the crash in the distance. 12 minutes after that, Karen was back on camera, sneaking into her house looking frazzled. Her smug expression vanished as the officer turned to her. Ma'am, you're under arrest for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, leaving the scene of an accident, and filing a false statement. She sputtered, This is ridiculous. I was just moving his car so it wouldn't block our driveway. By driving it a block away and crashing into a fire hydrant, the officer said flatly. She was cuffed right there on her porch while half the neighborhood peeked out their windows. The fallout was delicious. Her insurance company's now covering the cost of my totaled car and the fire hydrant damage, which the city billed at over $8,000. On top of that, the HOA fined her for conduct unbecoming a resident and suspended her voting rights on the board for a year. Her husband moved out until this blows over, according to Mrs. Gable, and her adult son now has to park 3 streets away because Karen's car was impounded. When the officers loaded her into the cruiser, she muttered, This is all because of that stupid doorbell camera. No, Karen, this is because you couldn't mind your own business. The best part for me is how many consequences hit her at once. Arrested, car impounded, HOA fines, insurance paying out, husband bailing, son stuck parking down the street. It's like her whole life got rearranged because she couldn't just let you park in peace. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.